Hello again, Lockpicking Paul here, and tonight I wanted to explore ejecting the core from a Schlage large format interchangeable core. So just for identification purposes, this is an LFIC and this is an SFIC. So this is a small format interchangeable core, and you can see there is a bit of a size difference between the two of them, but they look similar. The difference being with the small format, it has two shear lines, and the key has it'll take two types of key, one to operate it and one to be a control key, and those will be to different bittings, and they'll match the different shear lines, and one key will either turn it or will retract this bar here, which will allow it to slide in and out of a housing that looks a little bit like one of these. This is an LFIC core housing. I don't actually have a small format housing for one of these, but this is not about these, because these are notoriously difficult to pick on demand to the second shear line to get the core removed. It seems to be a bit of a random affair. Certainly when I've been picking these things, I can't tell whether I'm going to hit the operate or whether I'm going to hit the control. And it does seem to be, for me at least, quite a bit harder to hit control than it does to operate. So with large format interchangeable cores, they work a bit differently. So this is the bar that retracts if you manage to pick it, and then you can pull it out of the housing. But this doesn't have a second shear line. This has a 7th pin. So the best thing I can do is show you how this works. This is a large format interchangeable core with key, and if I turn it, you can see it operates the lock. Pretty standard looking key. We've also got a control key. Now the difference between the two, if I zoom in, if I actually manage to zoom in, there you go, is that you can see there's just an extra tiny bit of bitting on the end there. That hits the 7th pin, lifts the 7th pin up, which hits a detent, and that allows you to turn the key and retract that lug. And I'll show you that working. So what we'll do first of all is we'll put the control key in. You can see that hole just allows a small turn, and we can retract the core. Now, obviously there's a 7th key pin, and that 7th key pin is pushed up and touches the detent. So if I pull the key out, that'll drop down. That's all it is. It doesn't move very much at all. Now, all you have to do is pick 6 pins. You can ignore the 7th pin and the lock will open. But if you get the lock open, how do you get the core out? Because once it's open, the pin that hits the detent is now in the bottom of the keyway. And I'll show you, this is a previously picked core. And you can see if I put them side by side, there's now nothing to hit the detent. So I'm going to switch a light on. So let's turn that light on. You might be able to make out in this lock, in between the gap, there's a little tiny silver nubbin. That's the detent. It's quite a lot smaller than a regular driver pin. So you've got to be precise. And the actual pick profile to hit that detent is quite critical. The best pick I've found is one that looks just like this. This is the SSDEV small pointy pick. I have actually done this with a Law Lock Tools pick. I did try with my Mockies. The Mockies, the steel isn't thick enough. It needs quite a thick profile – because you have to put quite a lot of rotational force on the pick, and the mockies will just bend, and I don't want to wreck them. They're too nice. This one's a bit of an old dented pick, so I don't mind if this gets a bit battered. I wouldn't do this on a pick you like. So how does this work? Well, if you get the lock into like 180 degrees, so the bottom of the keyway is now at the top of the lock, and you want to insert the pick in about so far. And if I can show you, if the light will hit, you can see the tip of the pick touching the detent, and you just push up and turn. But the problem with that is you've got to be incredibly precise. It doesn't always work, and you have to play sort of hunt the detent, or hunt the gap, as it were. So I'm just going to try and line this up and show you it. Right, so that's it working. I've got the lug fully retracted, and you can see the core is turned. But that's actually surprisingly hard to do, because what will happen quite often is you'll think you're pushing on the lug, you'll turn it, and it will only go in sort of 2/3 of the way, like that. That's quite common if you haven't quite got it in position. Well, if it's only 2/3 of the way, the lock goes in part of the way, but it doesn't go any further. It's stuck. In fact, about time it just slipped into the right position. Let me see if I can just, when you're trying to get something to fail, surprisingly hard. This is now working. Ew, irritating lock. It's actually working every time. Oh, there you go. It's done it now. So it's not quite retracted enough. It started to move, but stopped there. And if we try and put that in the lock, it gets about halfway. It won't go any further. So you've got to get on there precisely to be able to push that detent in and turn it. And it's practice, and it still won't work when you want it to. But you've got to estimate the depth right. And you'll just feel it drop into a gap. Give it a little push, and yeah, see, that one hasn't worked that time. It's still not retracted enough. But you have to try a couple of times, and then you will get it, and it will drop into place. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to get this retracted. I'm going to put it into a housing, put it into a vise, and see if we can extract the core blind. So without looking at where I'm putting the pick tip, I just want to prove it can be done from the front of the lock, so you're actually not looking at what's going on in the back. But if you've got one of these, it's quite a fun little activity to see if you can pull the core out once you've got it picked. So I'm going to get this all zoomed in, focused, and I will be back in a minute. Right, so we've got this picked, and all I have to do is turn the core just prior to 180 degrees, which seems to be the sweet spot. I'm going to turn this side on, because otherwise I'm going to hit it with the pick. And what I'm just doing is slotting this in with the top edge along effectively where the pin goes, or the pins go, and just going to try and find that detent hole. Like so. Bingo. That's it. We have ejected the core, but it is a lot fiddlier than that first time you do it. So if you got one of these, happy hunting. Let me know how you get on in the comments. That's it for tonight. Enjoy your picking. Cheers.